Hello, welcome to Mick's vlog. So this is a new thing where Dan and I are starting to do a few vlogs. There's no pick and mix this week, we haven't had a chance to edit it, so I've decided to do a little follow-up on Friday's video, which was about my new pedalboard build.
Oh baby, hurts so good.
We've had loads of questions, so I'm going to answer some of them now. Let's start with the important stuff. So Joe Brennan, Keith Tasker, and Max Lovelace, nice name Max, ask, where does that clock come from? It's the clock on the wall when I'm building my pedalboard. It comes from Habitat, which is a UK brand of homeware stuff. Andrea Alessi asks, what is that tuner? Lots of people have asked what the tuner is because they think it's a TU2 cut in half. No, it's a Boss TU3S and it's on sale. It's half a TU2 with no switch. So for anyone who uses a pedalboard switching system. The biggest question I had about the whole video was about the wet dry and how the signal is routed. Now that is actually all explained in the description text in the YouTube video, but here's how it works. All the drives in loops 1 to 5, I think they all go to the dry amp. In loop 6, I think it is, that goes off to a DeGigRig Humdinger. The output of that goes to the dry amp, so the dry amp only gets the drives. The humdinger, which is in loop 6, comes back into G2 and then goes on through loops 7, 8, 9 and 10, which is where all the wet effects are. And the output of that goes to the wet amp, which means the wet amp gets the overdrives, distortions, fuzzes, and the wet effects. So it's wet dry, it's not stereo. One amp only gets the overdrives and the other amp gets the overdrives and the wet effects, which are all the wobbly stuff and delay and rotary speaker. X-Crow, you sound interesting. You want to know, am I running everything in the front of the amp or is some stuff in the loop? It's all in the front. Dan and I tend not to use effects loops because we use amps with very high headroom, so no gain in the front of the amp or not any kind of modern high gain. Effects loops vary massively. I'm not a massive fan, so everything goes in the front of the amp. Prefer it that way. The Jeddah 13 says, can we hear the horn through the pedalboard? Yes, you can. Okay, back to sensible land. Gearmund, and I hope I've pronounced that right, Gearmund Stjordin. Gearmund Stjordin. I think he's from Daneland or somewhere. And Jacob Choi, among others, want to know how much the board weighs. Don't know, about, I'm going to put that on the screen now. Chris Turner asks, was the extra length of the cable an issue? So you may have seen in the video I have to route the cable from G2 all the way to the back of the board over the top lip and back, and that encounters about, I don't know, maybe an extra 4 feet of cable in total across the whole board, maybe a little bit more than that. Does that make a difference? Do I need a buffer? And Jay Collins asks, is there an always on buffer anywhere? No, there's no buffers. The only buffer are the ones that are in the pedals already. So the Klon, for example, would have an always on buffer if it were always selected, which it isn't because it's in G2 and it's turned off. So no, the extra cable really is negligible. Maybe someone with dog ears could hear it, but I certainly can't. So when you're talking about high quality cable like that, especially with a solid core over short cable runs, negligible, no buffers. Boss DC2 Dimension C Wazza is getting a lot of interest from a lot of people. It sounds absolutely killer. Michael Kaz asks, how do you get unity gain on the DC2W? That means when you turn it on, how do you stop it from getting a kind of a volume drop? Any modulation pedal is always in danger of doing that, especially when there's any phasing going on. Now, chorus isn't phaser, I know, but there is a phase relationship happening. You can do two things. You can either put a boost pedal with it or you could use the pre and post gain in G2. However, actually I don't notice it as a problem. So if you heard that it dropped out a little bit in the video, maybe that's a phase thing, maybe it's something to do with the recording. But it doesn't cause me a problem. It doesn't seem to lose any volume. Caleb Genheimer, hello Caleb, wants to know if the DC2 Wazza has any digital stuff in there or whether it's analog. Boss tell me it's analog and it only draws 65 milliamps of current, so I'm assuming that it is all analog and that's analog enough for me. A digital pedal would typically have a much bigger current draw than that. James Nicholson, you want to know if the DC2 is before or after the drives. It's after the drives because, as I explained earlier, it runs in the wet dry. So the drives all come first, dry, then wet, which is the DC2 and the other stuff. So I run it after. Some people like their modulations before drive. I should give that a try. I haven't done that yet. Huckle, H-U-K-L, Huckle, wants to know, do I use the Minivent 2 on its standard settings or have I changed those settings? What do you think, Huckle? There's no way I'm going to get in there and do any messing about with all that digital stuff and menus and button presses. No way. It's just straight out of the box, standard, sounds killer. More serious questions. Dennis M. Guitar, SGB 200 and Matthew Maneri all want to know about the phrase over-egging the pudding. It seems this isn't popular in America and in other parts of the world, and I'm really glad you asked, because there's some contention about its origins. Firstly, it's said to come from the Anglo-Saxon word eggian, which means to excite or agitate. Only an idiot would try and excite or agitate a pudding, so I think it's more likely to be if you put too many eggs in your pudding, it's going to spoil it. That's as much as I've got on that. Too many eggs, bad pudding. Jay and E Chicago want to know where all my Kingsley stuff has gone. The Maiden D and the Page D, Page DS, should I say, which I was using into the effects loop return on the last iteration of the pedalboard. I still use all that stuff. I still love it, but since I've got the 2-rock, it doesn't really need any preamp help. The preamp in that thing is pretty magic, so the Kingsley stuff just gets wheeled out when I use other amps and for fun. Nick Wilson says, is it just me, or does the Free the Tone flight time digital delay look like the dashboard of the DeLorean in Back to the Future? Marty! Julien Valois Dobby, or Julian Valois Dobby, wants to know, am I concerned about the latches on the Schmidt array board? No, I'm not. They've got latches on the side, on the sides of the board where... Am I concerned about that, presumably from getting damaged point of view? No, I'm not. It sits in its own kind of gig bag and it seems robust enough to me. I certainly haven't smacked them on anything or caught them on anything yet, and they certainly hold the lid down very well. If you've ever seen a Schmidt array board, it's basically German engineering, made in Germany by an English guy and a German guy, but anyway, we won't go into that. They are exceptionally well made, so no, I don't have any worries about that whatsoever. Dominic von Riedman wants to know, Mick really needs to do a show on the PRS Silver Sky, and that's coming from a fellow Strat cat, because it's such a divisive guitar. Yes, it is. Will I do a show on it? Maybe. It's part of the Strat journey, and I am vlogging all of that, so expect to see some stuff on that in the future. Okay, the big question. Lots of people, including JSE 2015, Tupac, like what you've done there, and Steve Coates have asked why there's no Tubescreamer. And Nick O says, what happened to the colour sound, the power booster type pedal? And our good friend Lee Needham, who we met on the Guitar Break stuff out in Italy and also in Brighton. Hello, Lee. He wants to know if there have been any changes to the board since we saw each other at Guitar Breaks and since this video. The next bit is for you guys. Right, I'm going to have to be careful not to jog the camera, but what you can see is things have already changed. So, why no Tubescreamer? I'm about to try one. What about the Colordriver? I think I can get that on there as well. Is the clon coming off? You can see that the clon used to be here. I'm thinking about putting these two on, losing one, gaining one. However, I do lose a loop, which presents me with another problem. The other thing I've got here is a new, smaller Warthog. Thorpy was kind enough to send me one, so that might present an opportunity as well, because I need to get to these switches. Bad Bob boost in this Maxon OD9 Analogman modded Tubescreamer. So what I'm thinking is I might be able to move this down here and put this up there with that, which does create me some routing and cabling issues, and it might mean I have to lose a pedal, because as they are, I could just put these in the same loop. So I think for the sake of expediency, that is what I'm going to do. We may revisit you in the future. So I'm literally going to, at the moment, Fuzz, Octave, Warthog, D&M Drive, and then it will go Tubescreamer, Colordriver, and I'm going to put them in the same loop just to hear it for now, because that's going to be a pain in terms of having to switch all these on and off the whole time. But I'm just going to put them in the same loop for now, just so we can hear what it sounds like to decide if it's going to stay that way. Right. So that can go in there. And it's got a battery in it, great, so I don't need to worry about getting it powered up just yet. This is literally just to hear what it's going to sound like. That's the return. Oh, my patch cable's almost not long enough. Okay, this is ugly. The pedals aren't down properly. The patch cables aren't routed properly, but at least it will give me a chance to hear what these are going to sound like. Quick thanks to Jay at First Line Distribution, who represents Evidence Audio in the UK, who sent us some of these rather nice Forte cables. Directional, don't you know? Let's have some of this then. Right, so no pedalboard cam, I'm afraid. I'm just going to have to explain what's going on. Simon's got my GoPro. So, as you just saw, the clon has come off, and in its place is the Analogman Maxon OD9 with Bad Bob built in, and I'll show you what that sounds like. So that's the sound of both amps on the Two-Rock Classic Reverb Signature and the Victory V40 Deluxe. Sounds pretty sweet, I think. Sounding good. Okay, I'm now going to switch on the... I'll play that bit again, and then I'll switch on the Tubescreamer part of the way through. Okay, so... yeah, nice. That was the Bad Bob booster switched in on top of the Tubescreamer, which is pushing the Two-Rock really into that lovely kind of crispy, sizzly, really pushing the amp nicely. Okay, here is the clean sound again, and then I'll put in the Colordriver. Probably a bit much with the Tubescreamer pushing the Colordriver, but nice and aggressive. Just going to hear that with some humbuckers. Whoa, mama, that was the Colordriver up. So I'll turn that off, turn the Tubescreamer on so you can hear the Tubescreamer. Killer. Okay, back in the room. Scott Allen wants to know if Dan and I have an inside joke about Bryan Adams. I'd love it if there was, but we don't. We just genuinely love Bryan Adams, which might seem odd to people of a certain generation, but I love Bryan Adams. However, a bit of trivia, which Wikipedia says is true, Ryan Adams and Bryan Adams share the same birthday. Look it up. Okay, there's Bird in the Air. They're around our hood. Or it might be Yay Artsy. But Yeatsy, Mark Edwards and others asked, how much are the amps panned in the video and also for live? Okay, in the video, the amps are panned about 10 or 12 left and right, which is about that much. It goes around to 64, which is, my hands don't bend that far. Live, I personally, if you get the luxury to have two mics, I'd ask the lovely, brilliant sound engineer to pan them both straight down the middle because it's wet dry, it's not stereo. However, chances are you're only going to get one mic, so just mic the wet amp. Galloping towards the end here, David Tompkins says, come on Mick, learn the whole of the Cliffs of Dover intro. David, I've tried. And the truth is, I just can't. Zen Drive 7, I can see what you're doing there. I like it on 6, but 7 will work. And Sean Laws, will the Rockett The Dude reappear on the board someday? Maybe, maybe, maybe. So Rockett The Dude does the kind of dumbly sound. The way I've got the D&M drive set with both sides on isn't that, but it's kind of my version of that. So the D&M drive does a lot of things either in its singular sided modes or stacked together. So it kind of negates a lot of other drive pedals that I might otherwise need. I love the Dude. It does the dumbly thing as well as anything I've heard. But yeah, it's not on the board. Tech72 wants to know if I've tried a Strymon Deco for all the cool flangey stuff. Bearing in mind that we've been doing some Hendrix shows that have that kind of stuff on the recorded versions. I haven't, and I'm going to, so thanks for the suggestion. And finally, Scampoli25. If only Mick could play anything except slow blues riffs and not hold the guitar like it was a toy. I'm wondering the same thing.